on Trump,
Yeah.
but the whole world's economy.
Yeah.
And you and I have been saying the whole time, well, let Joe Biden be the president of the corporation of the United States of America. He should enjoy he should enjoy that honor since it's gone.
Exactly right. And this is why the other thing that's been coming up all the time, well, we have to have a decision by the 21st. Why?
Not true.
The corporation doesn't exist anymore. So the election, first of all, was a complete and utter farce anyway, and they hacked the farce.
Right. And also, they have to have a quorum to vote, and they only allowed in 11 people on each side.
Yeah.
So the vote wasn't even real anyway.
Sure.
And, the other thing that's about to come out, we know, is the child trafficking thing. And that's where the unity, I think, will kick in, where, we're so divided right now. As soon as people find out about the children and what's really been going on, then everything's off the table.
Yeah, well, the deep state and the cabal are petrified of that coming out. And I've received a number of threats.
I'm sure.
To keep my mouth shut about that, because there's no truth in it at all. And I tell you what, if there was no truth in it at all, they wouldn't mind me talking about it.
Right. That's why I agree. That's the same thing that I said when they were hiding the truth about the Vatican going black and all that. I said, well, even if it was a lie, why wouldn't the newspapers report it? Yeah. Even if it was a big internet hoax that the Vatican went dark and that what happened to the Pope or the president of Italy and all that, if it was a lie, wouldn't that be news too?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, no, don't go anywhere near that. Please, please, please don't. It's you couldn't make it up. They're desperate now. We're seeing their desperation.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm in DC, right, with some of the great people, our good friends, and and everyone was, they're trying to cause so much chaos. To me, as we said from the very start, the worst part about the COVID was going to be the psychological damage, the mental damage. And the last few days, Trump supporters feel really, really lost. But that's the point, that they're doing that. But they're trying to blame, but people are confused. Where's Trump? Where's Trump? But in what I hear is that they're getting some whistleblowers freedom that, of course, during Trump, whistleblowers were treated with dignity and put on a pedestal. During Obama, they were put in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the stories coming out about the truth about Seth Rich, the Rod Rosenstein. It's piling out, but because it's only us and, a handful of other people still not deplatformed that are saying, look, that information is out there. They're hiding it, but you can find it. Yeah. You can research it. There are places to find what is truly going on. And I hear that they have to have in-person meetings with those corrupt satanic families, which is why we don't know where Trump is. And Pompeo's been flying all over the world. Yep. And does it look like they're going anywhere?
Exactly right. Exactly right. I do know from my intel that Trump is in a very, very secure location.
Yeah, I heard
and
too.
It makes a lot of sense, because the reason that people are asking where Trump is because they need to get him dead before he exposes the lot of them. And they're
Too late.
It's all out. It's all done.
Too late. Also, Ivanka put out yesterday morning, I'm sitting with our pals and they're panicking, getting calls all over, like this is going on, that's going on. And I'm sitting there and I see Ivanka put up a picture, happy birthday to Jared, happy 40th, and like with her 3 kids all smiling. And I thought that's her sign that they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I thought, oh, brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. There was the minute that picture up, I had 4 people say to me, that's a sign they're okay.
Absolutely. I said it right away. I looked and I go, they're fine.
Yeah.
I go, does this look like people that are losing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Or in danger? And now people, what's next? What's next is the truth. And the truth isn't going to be an easy pill to swallow for people that have been calling us, I call us conspiracy analysts.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It was definitely a conspiracy on the highest level, a RICO Act conspiracy worldwide. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that Trump has always been 5 steps ahead, and now more than ever. when I saw those National Guard coming in on buses on my way out of DC, I just started laughing. I go, oh God, it's happening. It's happening. It's too late. And then them on TV, like, oh, yesterday on our news, I don't watch it. I just go to look at clips of psychopaths. And I just sat there like, oh, they're all burying themselves. And then the whole thing they did to Parler, goodbye Silicon Valley.
Exactly right.
Huge antitrust.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you know, they think that because it's a private company, they could deplatform Trump. I don't think that's true. I think that there's sedition and treason in what they did to Trump, silencing him, and it's dangerous for the country.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But this is, look, the first step publicly will be taking down these Chinese companies off the stock exchange, which will start a digital war.
Right.
It'll start there, and then you'll suddenly see Silicon Valley are drawn into it.
Right. But I think there's also troops were deployed up there too.
Yep. Yep.
Because there was a lot of activity last night in LA and all that. It's also interesting if people want to think about it, who we haven't heard from.
Yes.
Like the usual suspects that are out there babbling, they're not. They're not calling Trump, because they would normally come forward and call Trump like evil or whatever, all these lies, inversion of what they are. You know, them Nancy Pelosi saying this is insurrection. I'm thinking, no, it's the opposite.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The only person I saw come out with a pathetic video was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right, I know. Well, he's the last man standing, but like,
well, he's a plastic American anyway. He's from Austria.
I know. Yeah, and think about that now that we know what we know about Austria.
Sure.
And married into the Kennedy bloodline.
Correct.
So, you know, he's one of them. But
it's desperate.
Yeah, but it's over. I mean, it's not over. It's beginning. But you and I know, in terms of Trump, it's a done deal. And those laptops were gold.
Oh, off the... I was quite pleased to be one of the first people to put it out there. I know.
And I talked about it on Ann Vandersteel, and I was like, I'm telling you, this is the jackpot.
It was.
It couldn't have gone better. And I have friends who were actually were there at the whole thing. The police let them in. It was planned by Antifa and Black Lives Matter. That guy Sullivan, who is the big Black Lives Matter guy, was spotted. They got pictures of him inside, pushing the riot. It was not Trump supporters.
That wasn't.
And the fact that the media is pushing that and calling all Trump supporters Nazis, when they are the actual Nazis, are the ones running the whole thing on the other side.
Well, that was the beautiful thing, because yes, the Black Lives Matter Antifa group were at the front of the crowd,
right?
But Trump's security forces were right behind them, before the normal people,
right?
So the minute that Black Lives Matter actually forced entry, which had been staged anyway.
Absolutely.
With the police, every single of Trump's people was camered up to the hilt, so they have everything. They watched it all live.
Right.
Literally, they had earpieces on, and they said, "Look, they've left every laptop behind. Go and get the lot."
Right.
And we heard numbers between 12 and 20, and it was between the two. It was 16 laptops they picked up in total. They've got them all. And
I saw footage of the good guys running through the crowd out.
Yeah.
They didn't look like, if you look at the footage, you can tell that they're not part of that group. They're just focused. They have their backpacks, and they just are through the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where Black Lives Matter and Antifa got done inside out. Was they went in there to cause trouble,
right?
And the Trump team went in to go and get the laptops, and then once they got it, they left immediately.
Right. I saw them run out. The four guys. I saw video of them run in, blah blah blah, and then about 10 minutes later, run out. So they had the map. They knew exactly what offices they were going to.
Correct. They identified, by the way, every single person of the Black Lives Matter that stayed in the building. They stayed in there so long to make a scene, and they've already been identified.
Right. And as we discussed last week, and nobody really looked at, on the 5th, Trump declared not only Antifa domestic terrorists, but he also made them foreign terrorists, enemy combatants, because the money to fund Antifa links back to the City of London.
Correct.
The bank, City of London.
Correct.
So, yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. But it's all coming out now. The team there are doing a great job behind the scenes. And this week, all of our hard work you and me have put into that,
I know,
and everybody else. Oh,
fun! Hey, Charlie, there's no one in this world. I want to jump through and hug you so much from here. It's been such a joy. Look at us. We're just at the beginning. But you know what I always said? I said, there's no agenda. No. Charlie and I are seeing the dots, and we have fun putting them together. Exactly. And we believe we have this faith that's beyond comprehension. And, you know, I've been talking quite a bit about God's work with the Abrahamic Accords, because as you and I discussed, since the beginning of England and Israel and Balfour Declaration and all that, it was all about endless wars in the Middle East. So they went in and they divided the Abrahamic religions externally, the same people financing both sides, and they have been playing it off each other. And what the Abrahamic Accords, I think, is happening is this is God's work on earth, reuniting the good that was really always supposed to be and extinguishing the bad. And they didn't even let Donald Trump talk about that. The media didn't cover it, and he wasn't allowed to talk about that during the whole debates and campaign. I mean, how dare they? That's God's work. This is something that people thought was impossible, but it was only impossible because the Davos crew and the military industrial complex in America and the CIA, which is, I can't wait till they're done. Everything that they've done all these years has been so against all humanity, in my opinion. No concern for human life, all that. But to me, we've seen God's work on earth, you know, and it's just, you have to look for it, but they were hiding it because they're Satanists. This is the Great Awakening part that we didn't expect was a rejection of all these years of manufactured crisis and hate, and just saying, no, really, it's the governments. Our governments turned on us. Yeah. It's not we, the people of the planet. And that's why I laugh and I say their great reset, their big globalization plan backfired big time, because now the great reset is going to be that we're actually all at peace, because we all, the whole world, all of us, the three of us are in totally different places, but we actually are defeating evil together one day at a time. And I think that that's really the best part of it all, is that now the concept of globalization that the UN was pushing that isn't real, is the opposite, is really tyranny. Yeah. We actually are coming together. That's why it's great to be with both of you, because we're all over the world, different religions, different everything, but we all realize we have a common goal, and that is love and hope and prosperity for all. Yeah. And I think the three of us honestly know that that's been more than possible all this time. And, you know, now it's coming, because the whole world right now, Charlie, is bankrupt, right? Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of money, but the whole system is bankrupt.
Mel, I really liked it when you talked about the Bank of International Settlements with, I think it was Anne van der Steel, because I know David Icke talked about this years ago, and I've also read a lot about what the elite Dutch banker, I think it's Ronald Bernard, right?
Right, yes.
Countries like mine, and in fact, most of the 7 billion people in the world know nothing of the existence of a bank that controls the world's money. And the Bank of International Settlements is completely independent and doesn't abide by Switzerland's rules just because it's there.
It doesn't abide by anyone's rules. Exactly. It's like an overlord in a science fiction movie.
Right, exactly. Like the City of London and the Vatican City, it's its own sovereign entity. And so it deliberately tyrannizes developing countries by instigating debt, and then enjoys complete immunity from prosecution. So my question, I think, I really immunity from prosecution. So they're just untouchable. So my question, I think, I really wanted to ask you was that, Charlie and Mel, isn't this the head of the snake, the first thing that has to be cut off? The financial roots of all the deep state's activities must be cut off at the source. Yeah. So do you think this has been accomplished already, or is it in the process of being?
I do.
It was done back in April.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was done in April 2020.
Right. I mean, but they went in listen, all roads led back to Switzerland, but the whole world was psyoped, thinking that Switzerland was the only neutral country. Wasn't that what we were all told our whole lives? Absolutely the opposite. the opposite. And they pulled it off. And that's why I've been saying lately to people, and they know nothing about it. Look at Kazakhstan. They were planning their one world government there. And they had the Belt and Road Initiative going through there. I mean, they do as we speak, but also another psyop. They did these Borat movies, made it look like Kazakhstan is some kind of backwards place. No, the one world government was building their headquarters there. I mean, I hope it stopped, but that's the truth. And then you look at what China had planned. You know, and in my sources, right or wrong, I'm just saying, say that G has already been removed, like that we are watching a farce at this point, and these people are holding on for dear life. And now it's honestly just our media and the last men standing that are even pushing it. The hardest part for me is to watch this media, the level of complicity. And what they've done, especially in America, our media is so awful, because the problem is the three of us know the truth, but there's millions of people who believe CNN, MSNBC, BBC, like all these corporations that are running everything. And then you see the corporations jump in. And what the three of us know is it's the same people that own all of it. They own everything. And Charlie and I first did a show months ago about the Act of 1871 and when they usurped the American government, and that we've been paying all these years to the crown, which is really the Rothschild banking family, our taxes. Like you said, the BIS is private and they own the Fed. The Fed is private and they own the IRS. The IRS is private. You know how many lives the IRS has destroyed? I mean, destroyed. And it's all been BS.
America's a private company, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was Charlie, can you tell her what happened to the American?
Well, this is something we were discussing earlier, because everybody's waking up and saying, well, we've got to have a decision by January the 21st. Well, no, you haven't.
Originally constitutional, right?
Right.
The original constitution is the 4th of March, which will probably be between you and I.
I agree.
The truth is that with regard to what has happened, the United States corporation was dissolved in 2019.
Right.
So the corporation doesn't exist. The same as the British government corporation doesn't exist. Same as the Commonwealth corporation doesn't exist. They've all been closed down.
Right.
So before we start, the election was completely fraudulent and fake anyway, because there was no corporation. Right.
And Donald Trump's actually been, and all our presidents have been the CEO of the Corporation of the United States of America. Correct. So Trump was always going to break it down, get rid of, you're right. The financial had to be first. And that's what Charlie and I have been talking about forever. And people, stop it. It's not about them handing out gold to everyone. It's about a level playing field that we were never entitled to because we were lied to all this time about fake money and manipulation and debt slavery and all this crazy stuff that kept us in just constantly spinning. We could never keep up. I don't care if you're rich or poor. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. And the pressure. And like I said, the IRS in America has destroyed so many lives. Well, they're a private company that work for the Fed, that work for the Rothschild bankers, that work for that own the BIS, which runs all the banks. It's funny, during the beginning of COVID, when Trump kept saying, I think he was saying 187 countries. And I kept saying, isn't that the same amount of countries that have central banks? And the central bank, like you brought up before, what they do is they go in under the guise like the UN of helping war-torn nations that they just probably paid for the war on both sides. And they go in and they make a deal with the corrupt officials. Then the officials are no longer serving the people, like in America. And then they go in and then they steal all the resources and make their people slaves. They've done nothing, no good. When I look at the UN, I don't see one thing good that's come out of it, except for that it's going to be done. I mean, they've gone around the world under the guise of helping, and all they've done is enrich themselves. And
the citizen of America is really just, you're an employee of that private company.
Right. Our birth certificates are basically guarantees that the corporations will make money that are all run by those 12, 13 families that are all over the world. And we've watched the slow destruction, but honestly, you guys are much luckier, I guess, not to be in the media circus that we are in America, because it's our corporations, our media, the whole thing. We're going to find out the whole George Floyd thing was manufactured. We're going to find out that it was planned years ago. We're going to find out, I believe, that the COVID is the flu. We're going to find out that all these lockdowns, the destruction of people and property, if you guys came to New York City right now, you would not believe it. Your heart would break. You'd be like, how is this possible? I mean, I went to NYU, but I grew up knowing I would. Like, my goal in life was to move to Manhattan, and it was so exciting. And I mean, what they've done here, but all over the world. But I can only see it from my point of view. And also, since everyone's always seen in movies and TV and everything, how glamorous and great and fun and, Broadway and all that, it's a shell. It's a carcass, New York City.
It's like when you drain a swamp, though. When you drain the water out, yes, it looks horrible as you're draining it out, but that's the only way that you can expose the shit on the bottom. True. And that's what you've had to go through. At the moment, you've got no water in your pond, but at least you can identify the shit that's at the bottom.
Right. Did you hear about that money that the Vatican got caught transferring to Australia, and then acts like they don't know where it came from?
Yeah, but
you're hoarding the money, you Vatican.
Just very, very interesting on that point, because there'll be a number of countries now that go to this money that came in from the Vatican. We want to know why. And for anybody like you or me, if we're in a court of law, ignorance is not a defense. And the Vatican, I don't know where that came from.
Right.
400 million, 500, no idea. Might have been sent by accident. Must be a repayment of a loan.
Well, all these years pointing at us because we don't give enough charity.
Yeah.
They've been sitting on billions.
The Italian government is trying to make a deal with Trump, so that they don't get.
They have to.
They have to make a deal, otherwise their government is over. Well, their government is over anyway. But because the fact that they've come out and said we need to make a deal, because otherwise, it's destroying Italy anyway.
Honestly, Charlie, can you believe we're in lockdown again? I just have to mention that this extreme high degree of control over our public and private life in the UK with this lockdown. I mean, it doesn't worry me so much that, as I instinctively feel that there is a correlation here between the severity of the COVID restrictions and the bigger steps that Trump is trying to roll out with his strategy. But what's absolutely beyond my comprehension is how the people here, they're like zombies. The police are now so heavy-handed. They stop you on the streets and ask you how long you've been out. I've even heard that an 82-year-old man was being harassed because he was fined for throwing snowballs. And the police are just desperately intimidating us right now. So the protests have stopped because of this interrogation. And, the fear-based mind control I think, really is the biggest achievement that our civilization has been able to achieve. Because there really is no palpable distinction of this virus's fatal contagion, right? We can't really specifically point out what it is, but I mean, there's definitely no piles of dead bodies on the street, and we don't really see anyone with the disease. And we go by the hospital every day. There aren't really lines of ambulances admitting new patients, but we're being forced to believe that this disease is so virulent that you have to go and have a test to see if you've got it. And then when you don't show any symptoms, they tell you, oh, well, that's a symptom as well. So, I mean, I keep saying this, but people have chosen this false sense of security, and they've given up their rights and freedoms. And we don't really need to be kept safe from COVID. We need to be kept safe from the government.
Right. And these rogue police officers, because what happened the other day in the Capitol, first of all, those are the police officers of the fraudulent corporation of District of Columbia. So, and then also after the Black Lives Matter stuff, they culled their police force. Well, who did they keep? They kept the rogue officers, because these officers have free will. They know in their minds that what they're doing is wrong. I saw that about the snowballs in England. I saw another woman in England that was walking and past curfew and got arrested. And the truth, we have a 10 p.m. curfew in New York because I guess the virus gets crazy after 10 p.m. But I see these officers have a choice, just like the Nazi soldiers had a choice. You know, saying that you're doing your job won't fly. You know, Eichmann and all the guys that actually paid for the Holocaust, which wasn't really the worst of the worst, they got away. But the excuse of I was doing my job doesn't fly. So when I see these officers, there's barely any cops in New York City right now that I've seen at all. But they're contact tracers. These people, contact tracers, I don't understand how they live with themselves. For $22 an hour and benefits, they go around and take pictures trying to catch businesses and then turn them into the government so that the government comes and shuts them down or gives them fines. And then they turn on their own citizens and neighbors for money. It's the same ugliness at the core. And the lockdowns in the UK make no sense. And when they started saying that there was a new strain, I said, they haven't even isolated the old strain.
No.
How could they know? And the guy who created the PCR test said that it's not for this. Right. And then on top of that, we find out finally, all this time later, there is no asymptomatic spread. And Charlie's the guy from the beginning that's been saying you can't spread a virus. You can spread germs and everything. And then, you know, the crime against humanity was banning hydrochloroquine.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what, though? We've been talking, you and me, for 45 minutes, and Tiana's been on for 15 minutes. And we haven't mentioned one thing, and that is that this is all to cover up the financial reset.
I know.
Right.
And the quantum financial system. So they've achieved their goal. They've managed to keep us distracted while they shut down the world's banking system, the old system, and activate the new one. The new system was activated in August of this year,
right.
But was running in parallel to the old system. Okay. And I was hoping it'd be fully operational in January the 1st, but due to certain issues behind the scenes, they're just the issues. I can tell you what the issues are now are making sure they don't move across contaminated funds. Right. There's so many instruments on the old system. They need to make sure that those instruments are legitimate, because there's an awful lot of illegitimate, as we already know. $100 trillion of funny business with the stock exchange and also with everybody else. So they're making sure that they don't empower and enrich evil. And that's they just
released a report where it was like hundreds and hundreds of pages of these suspicious activity reports, a lot of it connected to child trafficking and drug trafficking and weapon trafficking and all of that. And the truth of the matter is that they have been dismantling it as they go. And I believe a lot of bankers have been arrested behind the scenes. I know a lot of CEOs and stuff. And now it looks like everything's running on like their skeleton crew. You know what I mean? Like the big guys are paying for this. They are. And I know I told you, Charlie, that a long time ago, not a long time, like 2 months ago, there was a big arrest of bankers in New York, and nobody covered it. Yeah. And that's when I knew, like, okay, they're dismantling the fraudulent system. And plus, we talked, Charlie, a long time ago about how the stock market, almost all of it, type A stock, which actually matters, is in the hands of the international banking cabal. And what people are actually trading is worthless. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, we're talking about, it's all everything in our financial system that was set up by the central bank and the Fed is a total fraud. And it's interesting, during the riot, Mnuchin out of nowhere, if anyone was paying attention, because I follow him until they axed me off of Twitter the other day. Me and Ann Vandersteel were like, she goes, I got axed. I'm like, me too. And we're like, yeah. At least we got axed with Trump.
Exactly. But
so this whole financial thing has been unraveling. I saw it in 2017 when this started, when the Rothschilds started selling off stuff. I was like, they got him at the top. Yeah. And now when people wake up, Charlie said, when people wake up, we're going to find out that they did delist the Chinese banking cabals companies from the stock exchange. Like you said in the beginning of the conversation, cut off their money, you cut off their power, because they control everything by bribery and by blackmail, and blackmail is expensive. How do we think, and also the Epstein boomerang's going to come, and that's going to take them all, everyone who's left standing, it'll take them down, because people don't realize how big the Epstein case is. It's not about teenage girls.
The Kraken, is it possible that he is the Kraken?
He's definitely one piece of it. I think that the biggest, what do you think the Kraken is, Charlie?
It's a combination.
Right.
A combination of General Flynn, Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood. There's a few others in there too. John Durham's in there.
Right.
There's a few of them, but they are the world's elite.
Right.
I'd love to think Trey Gowdy was in there, but
me too. I'm not sure. Also, Jeff Sessions disappeared. Jeff Sessions is a hero. Yeah. He's no matter what happened with him and Trump, he knew. I think the whole thing between, I don't know that this is true, but between Trump and Jeff Sessions was a show. Okay. Because I think their whole public thing back and forth, because it was Jeff Sessions who started the crackdown on the international child trafficking, disgusting ring.
It's possible that he's a double agent, right?
Well, I think it's possible that he played a role, but he'll be back. I look, when this stuff comes out, it was him who helped Trump do the executive order. And don't forget, in our country also, the executive order on foreign election interference was actually written after the current attorney general that just stepped in, Rosen, put in a report about it. So Rosen's been on this case the whole time, the international election fraud, which I believe was a sting, and they knew it was going to happen as it happened. But then the other guy that's now been below him, Donahue, tried Nexium, Huawei, and El Chapo. And all of this is going to connect, and it's all going to connect to the international child, human, and organ drug trafficking all over the world, right back to China, all the way to the port of Long Beach and everywhere in between. And, child trafficking, organ trafficking, and human trafficking replaced oil as the biggest commodity. Just none of us knew about it.
Sure.
So, that's what I say. No matter how divided we are in my country, I still believe that when this information comes out, which it has to, that nobody will be able to believe what's happened, the evil behind the scenes of the powerful and rich. Mm-hmm. And I think that, and it's not going to be let's hang them. It's going to be sorrow, and grief and feeling like, how come we weren't looking at this?
Yeah.
Because I was talking last night with somebody about how many times we've seen on the news that CPS, had seen a kid 4 or 5 times, and then they show up dead, and then it's like nobody's held accountable. Or CPS and foster care, when the Clintons made foster care a business, it really ties back to that. But I think that when people realize that there's true evil and we've unknowingly rewarded them for it, that's when it's going to be a big and I think people will have to, my favorite thing you say, Charlie, is that you have to readjust your moral compass. I use that a lot in real life too now, because you said that to me when I asked you about when you got out of the cult and you had you didn't know it was real, that you said that you had to worry one from the collective we, is the Great Reset, this sicko Build Back Better. Anyone saying that is complicit in my mind. And that whole thing was about not just what you're saying with that we're not allowed to own land, but that they control all food supply. They control all financial. They control everything. They want us to have it has nothing to do with what Charlie and I talk about with the quantum system. They want us to have no access to cash so that they control the cash. And then last week, I'm reading an article, it blew my mind, that and all of this was already practiced in China. Mm-hmm. They want us all to be living like the Chinese. And when I first saw the masks, I said to somebody, we're not, it's so annoying. What's with the masks? It's so stupid. And because it had been going on for years in China. And then suddenly it was like, I was the only one not wearing a mask, being like, what? Because it's dehumanizing. That's what that mask is about. It's about, it's dehumanizing. I was talking to Roseanne the other day about in Nazi Germany, when they take the people and they take all their belongings and their everything, and then they put a tattoo on their wrist, and that's your name, that's who you are for the rest of your life. They took away their person, like basically what happened with big tech and Donald Trump last week. They took away his person, his ability to speak, his individuality, while hiding everyone's faces and keeping us 6 feet apart is just a mental, the same thing mentally. They're hiding your ability to be the individual, the unique soul, the unique person. You know, I used to do this thing where, like, when I was in a bad mood, I'd walk down the street and try to make eye contact and smile at people and see if they'd smile back. Because New York, a lot doesn't happen a lot. But it'd be surprised. You can make like somebody's whole day. They hid our smiles. They muffled our sound. And they made us think that this is okay, and kept us away from our families and out of restaurants and all this it's a farce. People say, oh, it's a real virus. Yeah, it's a virus. It's not deadly. This wasn't about a virus. This was about complete and total control, to the point that we begged them to give us a vaccine that would make us slaves forever. That's the problem. It's the same people, the same companies, the same board of directors, it's the same people that have been doing all this, these Bilderberg, Davos, and then they have their think tanks and their non-government organizations that come up with these plans, and it's all under the guise of sustainability and climate change and all this nonsense, where really it's not. It's about full surveillance. It's about communist China, full surveillance, invading all of our countries. And, you know, we fought this war once and thought it was over. And the other thing about America is only 300 years old and a very young country. And a lot of these people never wanted America to exist.
Right.
The truth was that when the UN was put there, the plan to turn the world into a one world government was the plan behind the UN. It was just sugar-coated and being for good. Like, these lockdowns are for our health. No, they're not. They're for the total control. Also, something that's going on here in New York, I've seen it myself, is they're putting up, you know, under the guise of COVID, more and more surveillance tools. And during the initial lockdown, it was paving Times Square and everywhere with sensors underground. And then you're seeing a lot of underground stuff going on. This is all the brainchild of the same sick people, including Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt at Google and Cisco and all these companies that come together to make these smart cities. Basically, they're living, like you're saying, in a cement prison where everything that you do, say, everything is monitored at all times. And God forbid you get the one of the vaccines with the nanotechnology in it, then they're monitoring everything. And it's sickening. And you're absolutely right.
If you look at it, the government and the people you just mentioned is exactly the same social construct as a paedophile.
Well, here we go.
Here's a sweetie, come with me. It's
right.
Exactly the same construct.
Grooming. It's grooming. It's grooming to accept your own slavery.
To accept your own slavery.
And
they offer you a little sweetie to come with them to lead you into evil. And that's what the social construct of government has done. It's the same entrapment that paedophiles use. It's the same social construct.
And it's the same, you know, and it's also the cult mentality of, if you don't go along, you will be banished, you will be shamed, you will be, we'll destroy you, you know, if you break the mold. Because right now, I think the best thing everyone can do is, you know, we're the only reason people like me even put on a mask is because I don't want people to bother me in my lobby. But once I leave the house, you know, of course I don't. But I think more and more people have to get it together and just stop. We're scared to get arrested. They're not arresting criminals. They're arresting people that are out walking their dog past 6 p.m. It's completely, but letting criminals run free because they can control them. Which is what happened at our Capitol. Is they have an army of criminals that they can call upon, give some money to, put on buses to wherever, make them blend in. and do whatever they want. Well, those are probably the criminals that they're letting out of prison. Then they get them involved. Here's your deal. If you want to get out of prison, they're not letting out the elderly from prison. They're not letting out the nonviolent offenders. They happen to be letting out the violent offenders. Well, why is that? Well, I would say that there's a correlation between Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and the release of prisoners, because they're letting out able-bodied men that are tend to be violent. And what's the over COVID? No, I mean, the COVID has been such a psyop, such a cover for so much abuse. I now, as we always talked about, the real benefit of all of this that we've done is to now help put together the dots for those that are not awake, that are starting to wake up, and just kind of share that, and spread the hope and the positivity and the good that's ahead. Rather than dwelling on, because right now everyone's in the whole world, but especially in America, is in a state of chaos and panic and not knowing, and what these tech companies did with Trump and the news media is so disgusting. It's what you're talking about in a different sense. It's mind control in the worst way, and these people are gonna, when all is revealed, which I believe will be over the next week or two in America, people are going to have a deep sense of, I think, just sorrow and grief. And it'll be for people like us, because they're going to have to seek out people that actually are telling the truth now, to say, listen, this is an opportunity to rebuild in a way that we have more of a spiritual bond and a love. They've been preying on our minds with hate and porn and ugliness and just everything from entertainment, media, the news, the corporations, even go to the logos, everything. It's just like we've been inundated with evil, and now we can cleanse. And like I said, everybody can turn their lives around, and right now is an opportunity. So we have to keep stressing that there's an opportunity in the look at that's what, if anything good came out of COVID, I think it gave everyone a chance to stop and look at their lives. Now, if you're looking at your life and you're saying, this didn't work out, that didn't work out, well, right now you have a real chance to reset yourself. So they can take their global reset and they can go wherever they're going to go, which I think is going to be a really bad place. And then, and we can take our reset and go somewhere better. And that's the best part about all of this.
Like that. There is there's a corrupt element in Russia, like there is a corrupt element in China. Don't hold all your feelings against the Chinese, because it's not. The bulk of the Chinese are lovely people.
Just like Iran, the same.
Iran's the same. Iraq's the same. Syria's the same. Libya's the same. Lebanon's the same. The other one was next to Lebanon, next to Israel. Palestine. Palestine. Oh. Most of the Palestinians are lovely, lovely people.
Right. It's
the pocket of idiots.
Right.
And it's the same. It's exactly the same in Russia. You've got these pockets of idiots, and it gets categorized as they're all idiots. It's like it started before this started. It was black people, and then it was they pitted black against white. They pitted man against woman. But before all of that, in fact, it was Catholic against Protestant,
right,
and Sunni against Shia. That's how they do it. The reality is in Russia, there is good and evil there. The majority of Russia is good.
Right.
The small minority who have a big mouth are evil. And the problem is the world, thanks to the idiots who've run it, have allowed these the minority of idiots to have a big voice. And the classic case in the United Kingdom is the BBC, who've allowed there to be more than two genders. There's now 75 genders, and all the idiots. In very simple layman's term, you've either got a willy or you haven't. If you're born with a willy and you want to wear a dress, that's your choice.
My feelings on Russia and Putin have always been the same. You know what Putin cares about? Russia.
Exactly.
And I think that's good. And you know what Trump cares about? America. And I think every country, their government should care about their people first. America first, Russia first is a good thing, because if you clean up your own house and you make it work right, then you can help, and then others will. Its borders, language, and culture have been stolen from all of our countries by these one world order freaks. But the beauty is the borders, the language, the culture, the flavor of each individual society and country that we've all been told that we're not allowed to be proud of, because then we're not a good global citizen. Well, I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and I want it to thrive and be great. And I don't want hunger and homelessness and all this unnecessary pain and suffering. And, but that's a good thing. I love that Russia not only was one of the first ones to say, get the banking cabal out of here, but he's also been very loud about pedophilia. Yeah. And that it's a Christian nation under God. Mm-hmm. A lot of the very positive stuff that Putin has brought to the table. And don't forget, our corrupt media and politicians in America, and our especially also our military industrial complex and the Davos crew and the Bilderberg crew, they've been pointing at Russia, trying to demonize Russia, when in history, Russia has come to America's aid many, many times when we needed them. And so it's all the whole narrative about Russia the last 4 years. I feel like Americans owe a Russian apology, for God's sakes, because of what our government has done, pointing, when the whole time it was China. And the people that were pointing at it knew it. And, that's
just one point as well. I was speaking with Mel before you came on, Tiana, about what's happening today. There's been big news that America is delisting 200 companies off the stock exchange that are Chinese. So they've gone to digital war today against China. And between you and I, and off the record, Russia have agreed not to get involved.
Right.
Officially.
Thank you for that intel.
Okay, but so today this shit's going to hit the fan like you've never known.
Yeah, because I think 1 year, the 70th letter of the alphabet.
I wouldn't mind if we stopped talking about all of them in general, because there are all these names on these societies, Rockefeller, Rothschild. When you scratch the surface, I want it to be done.
Judy Shelton in control.
I do. He put her back up.
Exactly.
Will it come out through CNN and BBC, though? Because if he uses the emergency broadcasting system or other independent channels like OAN, people will still see it as Trump propaganda. So will it be televised through? Guys, I was 12 or 13 or 11, I think, when they televised the hanging of Saddam Hussein.
Oh, God.
Should have been traumatizing for me. But, people... I just don't understand where it will come out through. If it does come out through the EBS, will people really take it seriously and watch it?
Yeah, I think the evidence will be overwhelming, and the people that don't believe the evidence will be left behind. And that, it's everyone's choice, but it is what it is. And if people want to do their own research, they're going to find that they've been misled and lied to, and they're going to have to deal with that. But I think that I hope he does the emergency broadcast system, because I don't want anyone else's opinion. I want the truth. Mm-hmm. And once you give it to one of these news channels, I don't care who they are, they still are selling advertising, and that's it.
Mainstream media, like none of it. That's it. Mainstream media, like none of it will come out through CNN.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
It'll come out on the emergency broadcast.
Right.
I think it will be coupled up with confessions. Video confessions.
Absolutely.
I think that's what will have the impact. And I think there'll be the exposing of mainstream media being complicit at that stage.
Right. I agree. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say they're done. Mainstream media is done. We're the news now wasn't a joke.